This is the plaintiff, Ebony Ellis. She says she was riding her bike and the careless defendant ran into her. She was splayed out in the street for 25 minutes before help arrived. She was taken to the hospital, and the defendant refuses to pay her what he owes. She's still in pain. She thinks the defendant's a real louse and is suing him for the $6,213.53 she's surely owed. This is the defendant, Eduardo Gonzalez. He says the accident wasn't his fault. The cops didn't issue any tickets to him, and a witness told them he made a complete stop at the very busy intersection. Just because a bike and a car get involved in an accident doesn't automatically mean it's the car's fault, and he thinks the judge will agree. He's accused of boondoggling a biker.
All parties, please raise your right hands. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Williams presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ellis, you are suing Mr. Gonzalez and Ms. Gonzalez for $6,213.53 in damages that you say you've sustained as a result of an accident. Tell me what happened.
I was on my way from school. I had to ride my bike this particular day. I was going down the main street. It's called West Memorial. And I got to, before I even got to the corner, I noticed that this truck was he was past the pedestrian line. So I stopped because it just didn't look like a safe thing to do to just go past while his car was over that line. So I waited.
When you say the pedestrian line, what do you mean? Do you mean the pedestrian crosswalk?
Yeah, they have a little pedestrian crosswalk, so they got those two thick white lines. He had actually driven over that first part of that line, because it's two lines. He drove over that first line. He kind of was in the way of the sidewalk, because I had to actually go around his truck.
When you say in the way of the sidewalk, do you mean he was on the pedestrian crosswalk? Is that what you're referring to? Because he's not on the sidewalk. So, right. So is he in the right lane?
Yes, he was in the right lane.
Okay. All right. So go on.
I looked at him. He looked my way first, and then he looked towards his left. And then he looked back straight forward, and he just sat there. So I waited a second, and then I got back on my bike, and I started to go across the street. But as soon as I got off the corner of that sidewalk and right in front of his truck, he hit that gas, and I flew off my bike. And I don't know if flew is the right word to use, but that's what it felt like when my body lifted from that bike.
How far away from where you were did your body fly?
It probably wasn't even no more than a foot. Maybe, it probably wasn't even no more than a foot.
She just flipped over.
Okay, so go on. And so what happens?
I just went through shock, and then I just started crying, and then all these people started coming around, and a man, I don't remember his name, but he probably was one of the witnesses. He offered to call if I needed to call anybody, and so he called my fiance for me. And then someone else called the police. The police ended up showing up first before the.
Okay, give me a second, Mr. Gonzalez. Let her finish.
Okay.
Yeah. So go on, Miss Ellis.
The police ended up showing up, and in the midst of all of this happening, I did see Mr. Gonzalez, but he didn't say anything to me, and so that really was what happened. Once the police did the police report, the EMS showed up maybe about 10 minutes. 8 minutes later. They had
Did you go to the hospital
and stuff. Yes, I did go to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital,
did you have any injuries?
I did. So
what were your injuries?
At first, I couldn't. Okay, so I had a contusion to my left shoulder. I had
that's a bruise, right?
Severe swelling. A bruise. It felt like a sprain. That's what it felt like.
Not what did it feel like? What did the doctors say you had? What did the doctors, do you have medical reports to show your injuries?
I don't have my medical report. However, I do have my bill that showed that they did X-ray, how many X-rays they did, and the emergency room and all of that. I have that here.
Right, but I want to know what their conclusions are about your injuries, because part of your lawsuit is pain and suffering. So I kind of need to know what your injuries were to determine pain and suffering. So where is the rest of the medical reports so that I can see? Did you break a bone? Did you have a sprain? Did you have what? Like I need to see the medical evidence of that.
Exactly, and so I'm glad that we're talking about this because there was a hiccup with my insurance company and his car insurance company, because I had appointments lined up to get a CAT scan. I had actually 2 appointments lined up for this, and they ended up canceling my appointment, stating that they were unable to get in contact with his insurance policy for whatever reason. And even when this spat was going on,
Are you suggesting they turned you? Are you saying that they turned you away from the emergency room?
I don't want to say that they turned me away, but what I am going to say is that they did the X-ray. There was no broken bones.
Mr. Gonzalez, let's hand the floor over to you. You're driving in this. It's a truck. What kind of truck is this?
It's a four-door Ford F-150.
Okay, and tell me what happened.
Well, I was going north on Martin Luther King, and then before I got to Memorial Boulevard, I stopped before the crosswalk. I made a complete stop, but I couldn't see to the left because I was going to turn right. I couldn't see because there's a church right there in the corner.
You were in the rightmost lane and you were going to make a right. Okay, go on.
Yes, and I stopped before this crosswalk. I stopped, complete stop. And I seen her coming down the sidewalk. And when I pulled up a little bit more so I could see there was no traffic coming so I could turn right, I was looking left. And when I looked up, I didn't even push on the gas. I just let the foot off the brake, and I didn't move but about a foot. And she was like right there in front of me. So she just tipped over.
When you saw her, before you hit her, when you saw her, where was she?
On the sidewalk, on the right. She was going
But
on
was
the
she
side.
was she stopped or was she pedaling?
She was still pedaling, but instead of going down the little ramp on the sidewalk to cross Memorial, she came down the ramp to cross MLK. She came off the little ramp to cross Memorial. And then she turned left to cross MLK.
And then cut in front of you.
That's where she got right in front of me.
So at the time that, I don't think there's any dispute about this, at the time that your vehicle makes contact with her, you are beyond the crosswalk, correct?
Yes, because I pulled out so I could see there's nobody coming from the left side so I could turn right.
All right.
And when I did hit her, I did call 911, but somebody else took the phone, and I did go to see her and ask her if she was all right.
She probably didn't know you were the driver because she was in such shock.
Yes, probably. But I did go and ask her if she was all right.
Right.
I gave the phone to somebody else. Somebody was talking on 911 on my phone.
Okay, so we're going to say this is MLK and this is Memorial. You're making a right on Memorial, right, Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so he says that you went down the ramp of Memorial and then cut in front of him. Is that accurate?
I didn't cut in front of him. He was stopped over over that first pedestrian line. Right. I went over and around him because I didn't.
Why are you going in front of him instead of going behind him and going in the crosswalk? Why don't you just drive on the crosswalk so that you don't get killed? Because this is very dangerous to go in front of a car that's going to make a right. He's past the crosswalk.
This is the thing. He was stopped already. When I was riding down the sidewalk, he was already stopped. And when I saw that he was past that line, I also stopped. Okay? When he looked at me and then he looked the other way and he stayed still, then I proceeded and went around his car. Now, he pressed the gas, or maybe he said he didn't press the gas. I don't know what he did.
Did you cross in the crosswalk?
I flew off my bike.
Did you cross in the crosswalk, yes or no?
That's what I was attempting to drive on. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. His car was on the crosswalk. He had already passed the crosswalk. Okay? You didn't cross in the crosswalk, did you?
No, I had to go around him.
Well, you didn't. You could have waited 1 second and then gone in the crosswalk, right? You could have done that.
No, no, he was already stopped.
Yes.
Are you not hearing me?
I know. So you would have, no, I'm hearing you just fine. You're supposed to wait a second and listen, Ms. Ellis, your rights as a bicyclist in the state of Florida are very defined by the law. One of the things that you're supposed to do is cross in the crosswalk. Why? Because if you don't, somebody might hit you when they're making a right-hand turn, which is legal everywhere in Florida unless it's posted no right turn. But let us look at, because I want to show you, let's look at the police report.
Ma'am, may I say something?
In the middle of me saying something? I don't think so. All right, so when we look at the police report, well, we've got that chart that shows it happening exactly like we all discussed right now. And then we've got the police officer saying, I determined Ellis was at fault because she did not use the crosswalk properly.
So my question is this. If somebody is already past the pedestrian line and you're on the bike and they have a red light, you're not supposed to cross the street. You have to wait, basically.
All you have to do is cross in a crosswalk. That's what the law is, that you have to cross in a crosswalk. Let me show you the statute. This is a statute that governs pedestrians and bicyclists, and your rights when you're crossing a crosswalk is the same as a pedestrian. And every pedestrian crossing at a roadway at any point other than within a marked crosswalk gives the right of way to the vehicle. If you're in the crosswalk, the vehicle must give the right of way to you as though you were a pedestrian, even if you're on a bike. And the bottom line is because we want to encourage people to cross in the crosswalk. That's why we have a crosswalk. So if he's blocking it, you seem to think your only choice is to go in front of him and risk your life. But there's another choice. Wait until he makes a right-hand turn and has unblocked the crosswalk, and then you go. Now, that may not be your favorite choice because then you have to wait 5 seconds. But that is the safe thing to do and the thing that the law requires you to do. He's right. Every accident with a car, between a bicycle and a car, doesn't mean a payday for the person in the bicycle. The person in the bicycle has to have had the right of way. You have to point to something he did wrong. There is no other way to make a right-hand turn other than inching up past the crosswalk. If you're in the crosswalk when he inches up and he hits you in the crosswalk, shame on him. He's responsible for every penny you lose. But if he is cleared the crosswalk and he's peeking down the left, that's what you're supposed to do when you're making a right-hand turn. And you are supposed to wait until you can cross in the crosswalk. You didn't. The accident's your fault. It's not his fault. And I'm ruling in favor of the defendant.
Thank you.
Well, based largely on the police report, the judge finds for the defendant in this case and says Mrs. Ellis on her bicycle, she's at fault. What do you think, Ms. Ellis?
I don't know what to say, but you know what? I'm alive, and that's all that I could say. God know what it is. No human could ever, tell me otherwise. So,
well, I'm sorry for your injuries, and I know everybody sympathizes with you, but in the eyes of the law, the accident was your fault. All right, Mr. Gonzalez, you feel better now? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know you were worried. Oh, yeah. You feel better now?
Well, I was going to tell the judge that in the state of Florida, it's against the law to ride your bicycle across the street. You have to get off the bike and walk it across. The officers were thinking about giving her a ticket for that.
That's very interesting about walking the bike across. Interesting.
Yes, you have to.
All right, thank you very much, and congratulations.
Doug, it's funny. We always talk about the pedestrians have the right of way, and people confuse that and think when you're riding a bike, you're just like a pedestrian. You're not. You're just like a driver of a car. A bike is considered a vehicle, and there are rules of the road. And here, the plaintiff violated those rules, lost as a result, and you have to obey the traffic laws just the way a driver does.
Night owl or early riser?
I think I never sleep, so I'm kind of both. Yeah. I'm kind of both, but I'm probably, I am probably more powerful in the morning. Like I'm more.
Yes, yeah. You're scary powerful in the morning.
Right.
You get up and it's just like one thing after another. All this stuff gets done before 8 a.m. And then I come, I'm like, oh,
like no. A manatee.
Right. Yeah, and she's already accomplished a lot of stuff. You do a lot of stuff early in the morning. Yeah. That's true. Probably a lot of your best thinking. I used to be an early guy when I had to take the kids to school in the morning every day. Right. But since I retired from the bench, not as much. I probably sleep in till 7:30 most of the time, 8 o'clock sometimes.
Ooh,
right? Yeah,
dangerous.
I know, right?